You're listening to The Trial Lawyer's Handbook, a courtroom preparation podcast series brought to you by Holland & Knight. This series is hosted by litigation attorney Dan Small. Listeners of this series will gain a fresh perspective on how attorneys can address various trial preparation issues and set themselves up for success in and out of the courtroom.
Welcome back to the Trial Lawyer's Handbook podcast, and welcome back for our second episode to Ian Ratner, the amazing expert witness and CEO of GlassRatner and B Advisory Services. Ian, thank you so much for coming back and sharing your extraordinary wisdom with us.
Thank you. No one in my family says I have extraordinary wisdom, but I appreciate it.
Well, there you go. Now you have it on the record. So we talked last time about some of the things that come up with experts, but I want to talk about the idea of preparing, or the challenge for a lawyer in preparing an expert. I gave a talk some years ago to a conference of expert witnesses. And in the course of that, I said, look, please don't tell me, if I hire you as an expert, don't tell me that, oh, I've been an expert 100 times, I don't need to prepare. Because first of all, I don't know whether that means that you're a really good witness or you've just developed some really bad habits. And second, this is my case. I know the case. I know what we need, and I need to be able to work with you. So when I talk about this stuff and teach it, I use the phrase, just do it, to talk about preparation and the importance of preparation. But what have you seen?
Yeah, I mean, you could never over-prepare. I know that people like working with me because I'm very prepared. I never go into a deposition without knowing as much as I can and being as familiar with everything. But I think you're 100% on it. You have to prepare. And I'll tell you, I still get very nervous. Again, I've testified 300 times or something like that, but I still get extremely nervous. And I think that's good, because it may not be good for my digestive system, but it is good to get nervous. And it shows that you want to know everything that you can about your report. The challenge in preparation is that more than likely, the lawyer taking your evidence, doing your deposition or crossing you, he actually likely knows more about the case than you. So again, you might know your calculation better than him. You know, that's why you have to stay in your lane, right? The minute you try to get out of your lane, you're going to get crushed, because especially large cases that have been going on for years, you have a case where there might be different experts, different issues, different witnesses. As an expert forensic accountant or business valuation expert or solvency expert, I do a lot of solvency work, you're really looking at a very small piece of the puzzle. And the minute you get beyond that piece of the puzzle, you can get blown up. And there are lawyers that will push you to get involved in other, oh, I need you to shore up. And I've had at least one, what I consider to be terrible deposition. And it was thankfully many years ago, but the lawyer was pushing me to get involved in all kind of other areas. I was trying to comply. I was trying to prep on those areas. My mind was so not clear at the deposition. So I think you got to prep, and you also have to make sure that you know, where is your line? What are you in charge of when you sit down there as the expert?
When I teach this, I talk about there being three pillars to expert testimony: expertise, passion, and clarity. We can't prepare lawyers as lawyers. We can't prepare an expert for expertise. That comes with their background. We can help with the passion part by explaining why the case is important, why the issues are important. The piece that so often is a challenge is clarity, because the dichotomy there is so often the more expertise someone has, the less they express it in plain old English. And I have a case now where we have a world-renowned physicist as one of our experts. Wonderful, wonderful guy, and has done a great job, but he's used to talking to other world-renowned physicists. And so in preparation, we've had to talk about how do we translate that to a jury, not of his peers, but of ordinary peers. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's really important, and that comes with experience also. For example, last time we were together, Dan, I mentioned discount rates or something like that. There's all kind of technical aspects of what we do, but you have to understand what drives that data. And I recall a deposition that I was in where it was my opinion that the expert was using a really, really low discount rate. It's an inverse relationship. This was a valuation question. The lower the discount rate, it was driving up the value. And we were having a hard time cracking him. And we took a break and we basically went back in, and the lawyer asked him a very common sense question. It's like, oh, would you invest in that business to earn that rate of return? And he said, oh, I would never do that. And that kind of blew the whole thing wide open because he wasn't able to relate the technical aspect of the discount rate to what it's really all about. It's all about a suitable rate of return for the risk of the business or for the risk of the future cash flows, right? So the point is, the only way you could really do that is by really understanding what's happening. And that's what I like to do when I'm preparing. It's like, what's really happening here? You know, again, there's so many complexities to forecasting and rates of return. You got to go like 80,000 foot. Like, hold on a second. You're projecting 20% margins in the future. This company never made more than 6% margin. You know, you have all the sophistication, but the answer is wrong. So I think it is good to kind of like smell test everything. And like, does this make sense? How are we going to explain this in common English? And that's really the thing that a good expert can do. A good expert could zoom up, so to speak, and explain it in a common way. I think that's the challenge, actually, for working with many experts.
Any thoughts on what mistakes the lawyers make in preparing their experts?
You have to know the weaknesses of your case. And I think the lawyers that do a great job preparing me, it's like, I know what I did, right? I mean, I'm going to know every spreadsheet. I'm going to know where the data came from. I'm going to know why I use that data. But let's focus on the weaknesses of our case. You have to switch from being an advocate to helping the expert understand all the weaknesses of what he did and all the weaknesses of the case and all the high risk assumptions that he's made. And that can be difficult. But in other words, I want to hate my case. In other words, that's the best way to prepare, right? Is to understand all the soft underbelly, so to speak, of the case. Does that make sense, or is that weird?
No, absolutely. You know, I wrote the ABA's manual on preparing witnesses. And when talking about preparing expert witnesses, I was reminded years ago, I don't know what happened. I think they went out of business, but there was a clothing store called Sims, named after the family, Cy Sims. And Cy Sims did the ads for it. And their motto was, an educated consumer is our best customer. And I love that because I think that's really the essence of the relationship between the lawyer and the expert witness. An educated consumer is our best customer. Both parties, I think, have to be, the lawyer has to be educated in the area of expertise, and the expert has to be educated in the case. And it really is an important back and forth dialogue. And I don't know if you see it that way or.
I'll tell you that I do. And that's why we're blessed. Our practice is 24 years old, and we've worked with many attorneys more than one time. They know us, they know our style, and it's very comforting. So a great lawyer is the best customer. I'll tell you one trend I've seen in depositions, which is really difficult. And I don't know where this is coming from. The idea that the deposition is going to be a fight. Like, just ask the questions. You know how many times, Dan, I've said in a deposition, and I could do this, I've been doing it, is like, hey, you ask me the questions, I'll answer them. Just ask the questions and you're going to get all the answers you need. The expert has to tell you how he came to his opinion, what documents he relied on, why he relied on those documents. But you're not going to beat the guy up into changing his opinion on the fly. It's just not going to happen. The expert is not going to do it. And I find that if I have a weakness in the case, I've said many times, well, that's a good thought. I hadn't thought of that. I got to think through that. I didn't consider that piece of evidence because I wasn't aware of it. Would that change your opinion? I don't know. Like, you just have to be completely honest about what you're doing, but you don't have to have a war with the expert. And that's what I've seen. I've seen things get so aggressive in these depositions. I wonder, is the deposition God telling all the lawyers that you need to be more aggressive, or is it just a trend?
I think it's just a trend. I think it's just people trying to show each other up. And I agree with you. I think one of the things we work hard to prepare a witness for is just that, to tell people to be relentlessly polite and kill them with kindness. And juries, it's fashionable to bash juries. I don't want to get distracted too much on it, but I love juries. And one of the reasons I love them is that they have very good, what I call jerk radar. They have good radar to discover jerks, and they don't like them. And so there is a limit to how effective that kind of aggressiveness is. I tell people aggressiveness has to be earned. You have to earn the right to be that aggressive by showing that the witness is a liar or a fool or a con man or whatever it is. But if you don't earn that right, I think it's too much. I wanted to move on quickly because this is so much fun. We could tell great stories for a long time, but you had a wonderful thought in one of our back and forths before this. You said something about being an expert is a lonely business. I thought that was just marvelous. What did you mean by that?
Especially as you move on in your career, you're supervising people, you have teams of people, you're working on collaboration in large projects. Being an expert is very lonely. When you're in a deposition, it's you. You can't ask, I need to ask Ross Hickman where that document is. Of course, you could say, look, I had team helping me. I don't know this answer. There's a way to do all that in the professional way. But number one, when you're in the deposition, you're all by your lonely. Number two, when you're in the end of a case, prepping for the trial and all that, the lawyers really don't care about all the team. The leader of the team is there. In November of 2023, I had a large trial out in California, and we were back and forth, and you're getting on the plane, you're by yourself, you're in the hotel by yourself, you don't have your team, you have all the documents. We're at a later part of our career, Dan. I mean, I know that it's hard sometimes for us to face it. We're in a later part of our career, and here we are. You're in a hotel, it's late at night, you're by yourself with your documents sitting there. I mean, that's lonely. The expert business is kind of a lonely business. It's not about chumming it up and big deal closing. Think about it. If you're an investment banker, you finish a big deal, you have a big dinner, everybody's getting a tombstone. You're an expert and you're in this big trial. You're in the hotel room by yourself, eating granola bars, and like the next day the trial's over. It's kind of a lonely business. That's just my impression of the way I've experienced it over the years.
Well, we'll try to keep you company next time. Ian Ratner, CEO at GlassRatner and B Advisory Services and expert extraordinaire. I can't thank you enough for spending time with us here on the Trial Lawyers Handbook podcast. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. Have a great day.
Thank you for listening to the Trial Lawyers Handbook, a courtroom preparation podcast series brought to you by Holland & Knight. For more information on courtroom preparation, please email dan.small@hklaw.com or visit hklaw.com/Daniel-Small.